It's been 7 long days, but Jujutsu Kaisen is back with a good episode. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 is an extremely interesting show, especially from a visual point of view. And the first episode did look amazing, but the real test starts now, for a variety of reasons. This episode was directed and storyboarded by Yosuke Takada. Some of you might not be familiar with that name. Takada was primarily an animator/animation director affiliated with Studio Mappa. He made his directorial debut with Jujutsu Kaisen episode 5. He then went on to direct episode 18 of the same show, parts of Jujutsu Kaisen 0 and Chainsaw Man episode 5. This was his debut as a storyboard artist. And here's the thing. Episode 1 was storyboarded and directed by Shota Goshizono. It had to be unique. It had to be interesting. But I wondered how much of that look would be preserved when he isn't the episode director. And the answer to that is not that much. Some of this episode looked normal. Some of the scenes looked great, but some of them lacked any interesting visual component. And of course it did. There is nothing wrong with an approach like that. Jujutsu Kaisen was never going to be a full Sakuga show. Season 1 wasn't either. Although some of the animation in this episode was inconsistent. I'll talk more about those cuts in a second. With that half-hearted introduction out of the way, let's break down the visuals. Make sure to subscribe. The episode opens up with a fairly long static cut. The smoke, or rather the steam here, is quite well animated. There is a secondary layer of steam which is a lot less opaque. Also, the compositing leaves the animation alone. It's not processed, the edges aren't blurred. I think it looks nice. I'm pretty sure this show will have a lot of these long, fairly still cuts because again, they have to cut corners somehow. This show does not have a good schedule. I feel like I need to mention that every time. I like the way this curse moves. It's very unnerving in a good way. Also, the close-ups here are very heavily textured. They remind me of Season 1, which isn't exactly a good thing in all honesty. The close-ups were extremely short and the heavy textures were probably there to provide a strong contrast. The art direction and the general artwork was quite pleasing to look at, aesthetically speaking, although it wasn't too consistent. This episode did lean into the comedic timing quite a bit. It had that classic shonen-like presentation for the comedic scenes. I can't think of any other noteworthy aspect from the first few minutes of this episode. This cut with the body language and the liquid animation looks quite nice. Also, nice close-up here, although the placement of the scar looks a bit inconsistent to me. This episode did have its moments, direction-wise. I like the way they integrated the boat race into the dialogue here. I'm pretty sure that's an anime-only edition. Also, the actual boat race looked solid. It was animated by Hayato Kurosaki and there's something organic about the way the driver moves here. Also, love the way the liquid is drawn, although it looks very different compared to the rest of the lake, especially in terms of color. Also, love this shot. The storyboards do have their moments. This cut looks neat, nothing too insane. I like the running animation here. It's not perfect, but I like the way it moves. I shall not nitpick. Kaito Tomioka's work is up next. He animated the entire Geto fight, which starts off with some amazing smears and some strong shadows on Geto's face. Cursed energy still looks the same, which is great because that look is perfect. Don't fix what isn't broken. Love the smears on the hand here. Deja vu? While this curse is very well drawn and heavily detailed, this cut does have its awkwardness. The excessive motion blur, the background being nothing, and the timing near the end, it could have been better. The cut here could have been more seamless. I do love this sequence a lot. The camera zooms in on this guy's face and uses the reflection to transition into what I'm assuming is the next cut. It then zooms in on Geto's face and uses his eye as the next transition point. It's so creative. I expect shots like these from this season. My expectations might be a bit too high, but I don't care. As for the next bit of action, I have mixed feelings. On one hand, the animation is incredible. The smears look flawless and the amount of movement and the subtlety of the same is remarkable. It's an extremely well animated fight, but on the other hand, I don't like the storyboards at all. It's edited way too tightly and the hypothetical camera is too close to the action. The cuts lack a sense of continuity and cohesiveness. The scene looks poorly put together in my opinion. Also, frequently cutting away reduces the impact behind some of the hits. It was like a montage of action stitched together instead of a single linear fight. Does that make sense? I had similar issues with Yen's sequence in Chainsaw Man episode 11. Also, the sequence is dimmed, which makes it more unnatural. Anyway, moving on, I love how goofy this entire sequence looked. The comedy was well executed in my opinion. Gojo jumping up and running looked a bit wonky. The exact movement could have used a bit more volume and a few more frames. The fight between character A and character B was animated by Gem. Incredible bit of perspective work on the broom here. This fight does suffer from the same problem as the last one, although this isn't as awkward looking. The movement was very well executed, but I wish the storyboards were a little less chaotic. This sequence is quite hard to follow. What is my brain supposed to think when it sees a cut like this? What is happening here? I don't have a problem with quick cuts if they are well executed. Just look at those wild Keiichiro Watanabe sequences. This on the other hand felt lacking. This brings us to the final bit of action, which was really impressive all around. Nice bit of morphing animation here. I love these cuts. I really do. It genuinely feels like something is pulling them towards Gojo. It feels like a heavy object is moving. The sense of weight is there. Also, incredible use of smears near the start. We have a short bit of background animation and some complicated layering work here. The characters and the camera is moving in different directions, but it feels natural. Again, that sense of three-dimensionality and volume that I keep raving about. Also, the perspective here is so good. The angle and the smooth hair movement, it looks absolutely incredible. The following cuts are ambitious, although the actual quality of the drawings is a bit questionable. Apparently, animator Dorian Kulo was a last-minute replacement. These are fast cuts, so I don't really care. Also, more background animation. I have a love-hate relationship with the storyboards in this episode, because this was really creative. Using Gojo's glasses to make the exposition more dynamic is a brilliant move. Also, love how you can see the reflection of the stones. The final sequence is up next. This is such a cool shot. The perspective on the hand is amazing. Also, the compositing completely changes when the glass breaks. All of the debris here, the shards of glass, the chunks of concrete and the pieces of furniture, all of it is 2D, which is very impressive. I absolutely love the partial rotation here. It's so smooth and well executed. And that brings us to the end. This episode had its ups and downs. I don't think it looked bad, but it wasn't as impressive as the previous one. It was obviously a low priority episode and it did look solid all around, but the storyboards and some of the animation left a lot to be desired. I hope the rest of this arc looks better, which it probably will. Is this the end? Are the cracks in the production starting to make an appearance? Is Manabu Otsuka secretly a vampire? Yes and no. It's not that simple. The lack of time is evident, and the way the team decided to deal with this handicap is by brute forcing their way through and hiring every major animator known to man. This episode looked good with some great moments instead of looking great with some phenomenal moments. That's about it. Did you like this video? Check out this other bit of content on screen. Make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time.